This episode of Ticket Volume is brought to you by us, Invigate. Get service operations under control in no time. Get 1 free month of our software solution by going to try.invigate.com. Ticket Volume is proud to host, from across the world, an IT industry veteran with over 30 years in IT. The managing director of Gander Service Management, he has served in countless roles at companies like Xansa, Waikato District Health Board, Genesis Energy, the University of Auckland, Northpower, and Carter Holt Harvey, to name a few. He's a contributor to VeriSM and has made appearances on all the usual IT media channels like ITSM Crowd, Ferris's Conversations, and so much more. Welcome to Ticket Volume, news and information for improving IT experiences. I'm your host, Matt Barron, and each week I get to get goofy with different people in the industry to talk about what they think about service management, technology, business, and anything related to that. This episode is going to be that. I hope you're having a great day and a great week. I also hope that you'll leave some comments, connect with us, or share our podcast with someone. But for now, let's begin. Welcome to Ticket Volume, James Gander.
G'day, Matt. How's it going?
Very good. It's a gorgeous day here. I always love talking to people on that side of the world because it's like talking into the future.
Well, if this is the future, then it's wet.
Okay, rainy then.
Yes.
I would like
Somebody
that.
pointed out to me the other day that Auckland has had 3 days of no rain this year. That's not good.
Wow. No, that's a lot of wet. Wow. Just pray for no landslides. So your introduction, obviously you've spent a ton of time all over the place. I like how on your LinkedIn profile you share a lot of the places you've consulted to, because a lot of that kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And you're a service management entrepreneur. You're someone who's looking at service management and trying to figure out how can I serve this industry and make money doing so. So what attracted you to service management?
To be honest, I fell into it. There was no plan to get into service management at all. I left school and went and studied travel and tourism. Graduated from that just as the tourism industry collapsed in my home city of Birmingham in the UK. So I went out and got a job doing data entry because a man's got to eat. And that led to me working on a help desk for British Telecom in the UK, got outsourced to a company called FI Group that was originally set up in the 60s or 70s for women to do programming from home. And FI Group were one of the people that were involved in the development of ITIL once it had gone through the government side of things. And so I remember back in, it was early to mid 90s, having an ITIL masterclass from, I think it might have been Alison Cartledge. And then when version 2 came out, which was 2001, went sent off and did my foundation. And I realized that actually, I like this. This is what I'm all about. I've suddenly found something that I could gel with. And I stuck with it. So throughout my career, it's been constant there in the background. And then when I set out in 2010 to become independent, I thought there's got to be something that I know I can do easily and well. And so I stuck with it. Never looked back.
Good. We're glad for it. I think there's a certain type of person that just really likes a very, very complex system. Is that your understanding? Like, what do you think actually gravitates? Like, I'm drawn to it too. I don't understand why I like service management, but I'm curious, like, have you ever reflected? Is there something that like stands out to you?
I think the thing that stands out to me is the fact that it's primarily about people. So yes, there's systems there. It's all about services, but we provide services to add value. We add value so that people are getting what they want out of a service, but also we make sure that the people delivering the services can do it well. And to me, service management always comes back to people, making sure that people know what they're doing, how they're doing it, that they're happy doing it. And then on the reverse side, that they know what they're getting, that they're happy they're getting what they're expecting. Just all those kind of things. For me, it's just about people.
Yeah, I agree. The thing that keeps me sticking here is that servitude. I've been watching The Bear recently on Hulu, and they come to the end of the second season, and you learn that you're kind of learning about hospitality. You're learning about how to take care of people, and I found that that's something that I find very rewarding, and it served me in this industry, but it's always interesting to reflect on that. And I would push our audience to do the same. Like, what's keeping you here? What really keeps you interested in?
Yeah.
Because it's fun. It's fun to think about.
It is. And I find it a fun thing to do. Maybe I'm sad, but I actually enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah, same here.
I certainly don't do this for the money.
Right. You're not rock star paid? Oh my gosh.
Oh no, I could earn so much more money and be so much. No, what am I trying to say? So better engaged in multiple projects if I was doing something like project management, or if I was getting my hands dirty doing coding, something like that.
Yeah, this is very, very niche. So
or
I know
as the rest of the world says, niche.
Niche, yeah. Niche. It's a tiny bit of the puzzle.
Just mocking the Americans.
That's all good. I love it. And I'm going to Birmingham in October. It'll be my first trip to the UK. So
all right.
I'll be headed to your hometown. So I know you as a straight shooter, and you say things like they are. You're kind of no nonsense, as I've found a lot of Kiwis are. And so I'm curious what you think. Is service management different in Asia and the Pacific region than it is in other regions of the world? Because you have a unique perspective having traveled across the world.
Is it different? I would say that certainly within New Zealand, there is a larger percentage of the organisations who are new to service management still. In the UK, it felt like it was a lot more established. And I'm aware that in Australia, there are still some organisations to whom it is new as well. I've worked with Karen Ferris, where we've delivered service management training or consultancy to organisations over there where either they're going through their first iteration of improvements, or they're looking to get training in the fundamentals of service management still. And it's the same in New Zealand. I've been to organisations where you stand there and you say, right, what is service management? And people just look at you blankly, and they think it's just the tool that the service desk use. So does that mean we're different to anywhere else in the world? I don't know. My gut feeling is possibly, but maybe not. I was talking to a CIO recently, and he felt that he's an immigrant from Scotland, and he felt we were behind over here compared to over in the UK. But again, that could just be the organisations he'd been working with over there. So I think in some cases maybe we're behind a bit, but I think there's also some organisations I feel are ahead of the curve over here, because we have that approach of we're just going to get stuff done. And people aren't always stuck in, well, the book says we have to do it this way, which I do see in a lot of organisations. It's the ITIL way or no way at all. Back in 2016, maybe, I'd just been over to the DevOps Enterprise Summit in San Francisco, because Rob England had convinced me that service management was dead and DevOps was going to be the big thing. And for a while, I think he was right.
Yeah.
I'm seeing peaks and troughs in both.
Yeah.
But there was an organisation over here who were trying to work out and doing agile service management. They were doing agile change management before anybody was really talking about it.
Yes.
So I do think sometimes we've just got that stuff it, we'll just get on and do it. Number 8 wire attitude, as we call it over here. We can do anything with a roll of number 8 wire.
And just like any culture or industry, it's going through cycles, and so sometimes coming in late on the cycle is actually an advantage. You miss all the abuse and the trauma of growth. So I don't know if behind is the right word, but different. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I also see a lot of organizations aren't so worried about the accreditation side of things now. They just want to know, what's it about? How can we use it?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that too, especially now that the hiring crunch is really, it keeps changing. Every day it feels like either people can't get enough jobs or they can't fill enough jobs, but it feels like that waffles every day. And so, yeah, I think people are more willing to accept people that want to learn as opposed to what certificates that they have. That's my perspective. But I also want to talk a little bit about what you share so much on LinkedIn. I really appreciate the fact that you are all in on simulations. Now, I don't know if that's how you actually are, but it feels like that looking at your LinkedIn threads. So tell me about it. Like what simulations are you running? Why do you stick to that? How effective are they?
Yeah. So there's 3 simulations I deliver. 2 a lot more than the other one, but it's still new in my bag of tricks, so I haven't really pushed it a huge amount yet. And they're all via Gaming Works, so well-known training workshop simulation organisation based in the Netherlands. Jan Skelton's Paul Wilkinson, or before Paul took retirement. And there's the MarsLander simulation and the Phoenix project. So Phoenix project was the first one I really got involved with. I knew that they'd done things like Apollo 13 and Grab a Pizza and Challenge of Egypt, but they'd never really been my thing. I just thought, silly bit of messing around. What are you going to learn from that? Typical cynic. And then I can't remember how I became aware of the Phoenix project simulation. I'd read the book, obviously, prior to going out to DevOps Enterprise Summit. And that had really got my attention, not because of its DevOps side of things, but because as an ex-IT operations manager, it gave me sweaty palms. I knew all the problems that Bill was going to go through. I'd been there, done that. You don't get this grey hair from having an easy life. And so I thought, I wish I'd known about this when I had a real job, because it would have made life so much easier for me. So when I saw that Jan and Paul had done the Phoenix project simulation, and I looked into it and I read a few summaries, I suppose, on how it worked and what people had said, I thought, that's good. And then I saw that Jan was going out to Sydney to do Train the Trainer. So I bit the bullet and paid the cost, went over there, became a trainer for it, and used it in a few organizations where they were going through the beginning of the journey to adopt the DevOps ways of thinking and working. And I saw that the people on the ground and the CIOs and the managers in between, little light bulbs were going on at varying stages throughout the simulation, because it's a full day and it's full on. Mm-hmm. It's exhausting as a facilitator and as an attendee. But every different person got a different thing from it at different points throughout the day. And you could see how, at the end of it, they were really engaged. Mm-hmm. You get to the end of round 3 and you say, right, do you want to take a break while I do some more scoring? And they're there going, no, we'll help you with the scoring. Can we get on and do round 4? Because they're so engaged in it and they're learning from it. And you do reflections at the end of each round to say, how did that go? What can we do better? What can we keep? Because you don't want to just change everything. And the discussions are going on and people are coming up with great ideas. And quite often I'll learn something new from just listening to people going, well, this didn't go so well. We should maybe try that. And I'm there going, never thought about that. Quick, make a note of it and steal their ideas. And that was really enjoyable. Because I enjoy doing coaching as well, and seeing people get those the look of a dead person behind the eyes suddenly sparkling, and them suddenly getting in saying, "Yep, don't need you anymore. I know what I'm doing." That's great. And the simulations are the same thing. And then when MarsLander came out to address agile service management, so it can be aligned with VeriSM and ITIL 4, I thought, yeah, I need to be involved in that as well. So I went through the online training for that. And again, it's very similar outcomes, learning outcomes for people. Both of them show people how we need better collaboration, better communication. Phoenix Project is communication between the wider organisation and the IT department, and then the different teams within IT. MarsLander is more around the internal communication side of things, but you do need to be communicating with your customers as well. Collaboration between teams, the use of visualization techniques, just all the things that we know deep down are good things. Getting people to see that and then go, yeah, I can see how we can do this at work. And again, every team and most people get something slightly different from it each time. And I just love it. And a couple of weeks ago, I was over in Canberra in Australia for a new department that had been set up, and it was all the leadership team. They got something out of it. Some of them were doing proper DevOpsy type of way of working. Some of them weren't. But it was highlighting to those who were doing it how they could be selling some of their things better to the other teams, how they could be doing things better with the collaboration to the users, the customer base. And then, touch wood, if I can get the signature, I'm going to be delivering Phoenix Project to a leadership team of an organisation where the only IT representative is going to be the CIO. It's a building organisation. But they've been looking at it, they've read the book, they've read the goal, they can see how a lot of those fundamentals can be used by their leadership team across the whole building organisation. And so they're keen to do a Phoenix project there as well. So people can get all sorts of things out of them, and I just love that.
Yeah, I love that last story. You can see how if you've got an organization and you're responsible for transforming it, working with someone like yourself or like some of our other guests to determine, what should we center our training around? What should we center our learning around? And you can find any number of books to center this learning around. Phoenix Project, Unicorn Project, perfect examples. And then the trainer can help guide not only just what book everyone should read, so you have the same stories, and then what should we experience together. The simulation is such a good complement to that situation, and pair it with training too. I mean, you're talking about an evolution revolution within your organization. It seems so simple to see from the outside, especially if you've gone through it, but man, convincing people, it seems to be really hard to get people to commit to.
Tell me about it.
Preaching to the choir. But it seems like it's really difficult. You have to commit to a full day.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Yes. That is the
Yeah.
hard part.
I mean, I was talking to a managed service provider who really wanted to do MarsLander.
Mm.
We were talking about doing 3 of them because 30 odd people in their organization, but they just can't find the time to take 10, 12 people out of the day-to-day operations, even though they know that they're going to get the value from it, to
Yeah.
help them drive improvements, to free them up to do more things, to add more value. It's that vicious cycle. How can we
Mm-hmm.
do a whole day away from money earning?
Yeah.
So it is difficult. I get that.
Is that about the size of a typical sim training? Is about 10 to 12 people?
Yeah. So
Okay.
both of them, it's round about that kind of number. Don't want to do more than 12 because then you have to start doubling people up into roles, and not everybody is going to get something out of it, because the nature of IT people is you've always got strong characters and the more introverted characters, of which I am one. I may not seem it now, but um, and so if you've got 2 people doing the same role, somebody's going to sit back, somebody's going to take over. So it's good to try and just keep it 1-to-1. And
Yeah.
I don't like doing fewer than 9 or 10, because then I've got to do more work. And as I discover, if I've got to take on one of the roles, I forget to do some of the facilitation stuff. So it's better if we can do 10 to 12 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Try
But the
not to pack
MarsLander
too
one
much in.
goes really well with sort of awareness of service management training. So you don't need to do the full foundation training in ITIL 4 or VeriSM or whatever it might be, the flavor that is your fancy. You can just get an awareness of what service management is about, and then go on the MarsLander, and you get to see how the incidents or issues come about, the events, how they can be handled, how we can negotiate service levels, how we can get the balance between projects and BAU, how we can identify service improvements, and what do we need to do to get people to understand that service improvements are actually as important as doing new projects, all those kind of
Yes.
things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love them. To me, I just wish I'd bought into them earlier on in my career, because I would have loved to have done these kind of things and learned so much more in one day than I learned over months of reading.
And have you seen anyone deliver simulations remotely or virtually? Is that even a possibility,
Yeah,
or is there just too? It is.
yeah. So Gaming Works, during the 2020 global hiatus, when nobody was going into the same buildings, they developed online versions. You get exactly the same learning outcomes from them. In my mind, being in the same room as people is always more enjoyable because better conversations, but they work just as well. People get to understand how you can collaborate using online tools, the value of selling your work, of prioritizing things, all those good bits and pieces that we talk about. But you can do them online using Mural, and it works really well. So hats off to Jan and Paul for developing that, because that was great. Now, it was slightly weird that in New Zealand we didn't have the lockdowns that Europe and the US did, because of what we'd done earlier on in the equation with our borders. So everybody was doing online simulations globally, but I was out there in meeting rooms with people. And then things changed in New Zealand once we'd started opening our borders up a little bit more, and we had to start having lockdowns within the country, especially in Auckland. So then I went and did a few online ones. There was meant to have been a face-to-face one that we had to can at the last minute because one of the team came down with COVID. So we
Mm.
just flipped it to the online version. So it can be done, and you can use it for teams who are spread around the world.
Okay. There was an article that you recommended to me that was around principles versus frameworks. Do you recall this article?
Yes, it's a blog I wrote about if you've got principles, do you need anything else?
I thought that was a fascinating concept, but can you summarize it quickly?
Yeah, so I was looking in one of those days when you've got nothing else on your plate and you've pulled all the fluff out of your belly button. I was looking at ITIL 4 has got the guiding principles that they've developed, came about through the ITIL practitioner guide. So they've now got those guiding principles. And then I was thinking, and I think this came about as well because somebody asked me to do a presentation to their organization on how COBIT and ITIL can work together. And so I was pulling that together and I thought, well, COBIT 2019 has got a set of principles that they pretty much hang everything off. ITIL 4 has got a set of principles that they hang everything off. DevOps is well known for having its CALMS principles. Agile came up with its principles.
The manifesto.
Kanban has got some principles that they may not necessarily be called their principles, but you've got your limit work in progress, make progress, process policies explicit, all those kind of things. Lean. Does lean have anything? I'm trying to remember now, but I was going through them all and I suddenly thought there's an awful lot of overlap here. Now, Agile has been around for a number of years. Kanban has been around for a number of years. COBIT has been around for a number of years. ITIL 4 is probably the newest one to bring principles into the equation. But I looked at them and I thought there's 5 or 6 principles that, with a little bit of tweaking of the wording, you could say they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got identify and deliver value or have satisfied customers. That's a running theme throughout most of them. Understand how work flows and collaborate. You've got keep improving, aim for perfection, optimize and review the way you're working. That's another one. Get a culture to welcome change, collaboration, and sharing of knowledge. Don't have any blame if somebody gets something wrong. And then have an end-to-end view. Remove silos. And then fundamentally, keep it simple. And I just thought those 6, I've taken a few liberties of shoving some wording in to fit other wording, but I just thought if you've got those 6 principles behind you, do you actually need frameworks or ways of working? You can just sit down and go, well, what are we going to do? Well, these are the things we want to be aiming at. So how do we do that? And I've worked with organizations where they've said, we want a new operating model. And you sit down and go, well, what are you trying to achieve? And they tell you, and you say, well, here's a bit of KCS that would work well for you. Here's a few threads of ITIL that would work well for you. Here's some of the DevOps ways of thinking that would work well for you. Here's a bit of Kanban and a bit of Lean. Let's squidge all that together and stick it in the oven and see what we come out with. And so I just thought, why not? Let's see if anybody buys into it.
Yeah.
And when I was talking about that, Claire Agata, when she was doing the VeriSM stuff, said, I wish we'd spoken about this before because the work I did with that customer is what VeriSM is all about. So there's no new thinking really. It's all there. It's all been done before. It's just sometimes it takes a random person who's bored to look at things and go, ah. And at the same time, somebody else, the other side of the world, is going, we should be developing a new approach that does this. And people like Claire and Johan and I've forgotten the lady in the US who was involved in VeriSM. Suzanne Van Hove.
Van Hove.
they're a lot more structured. They're a lot better at these kind of things. So they can sit down and they can write a huge approach that is going to work for most organizations, non-IT, and that is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I just write a blog with a nice pretty picture at the end of it. So top marks to them for doing their thing.
Yeah, I did accuse you of being clear-headed, and I think this is one of them. If you've got the principles, you may not need frameworks. I really like how when you were talking about, taking a bit from KCS and a bit from VeriSM and a bit from Agile, it just makes so much sense. It's so much like cooking. If you've cooked lots of different types of cuisine, you know what works to bring out specific flavors in the individual ingredients that you're working with. And it's the same thing in organizations, because no one framework works for an organization. They're not cookie cutters. You can't just stamp it in there and say, this is going to work. It's always customized.
It is. And even the organizations that say, we do ITIL, they only use little bits of it.
Mm-hmm.
We do change management or change enablement. Great. We do incident management and request management. Perfect. What do you do about knowledge? Oh, well, this. Well, okay, so you've taken a bit from there and a bit from there. Everybody does it. It's just sometimes not everybody talks about it in the same way that those of us who are consultants do when we've got no work on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, James, I want to thank you so much for taking some time. Thanks for being on Ticket Volume. Where can people reach out to you and learn more?
Through LinkedIn. Just find me, James Gander. There's not too many of us around. My website, gander.co.nz. Or just, you'll find me somewhere. I hang out in the Back to ITSM Facebook group more often than the LinkedIn one. Yeah, I'm around.
Okay, we'll find you. Thanks for your time today. Thanks for being on Ticket Volume, James.
Thank you, Matt. Good on you.
And for our audience, did you know that you can join us for a live recording? Register today at ticketvolume.com. And thank you for listening. You can change and improve our podcast by DMing or leaving a comment or opening a ticket. Speaking of Ticket Volume, did you know that this podcast is brought to you by Invigate, the fit-for-purpose service desk solution with integrated asset management designed to let you focus on supporting your organization without huge implementations and teams of admins. In fact, IT teams from Toyota, NASA, and McDonald's use Invigate to manage requests, automate workflows, and centralize inventory data so they can focus on delivering better service, because good service is good business.